Let's let's talk about the ways that we can slowly over time destroy public schools. I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking a lot about how to destroy it, but see, the way that I come at life is called inversion. I invert. I always want to invert. If you haven't heard this term, there's a lot of good videos out there on it. But let me kind of give you the short answer of what inversion means. Instead of saying, here's my goal and what are the 10, 20 things that I need to do to get there, which, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like it's like a task list and I'm going to achieve each one of those objectives and then I'm going to meet with success. And that's pretty cool. And if all those steps work out, then you win and you succeed. But in the military, that's really not the way that we're taught to succeed, to like win. I mean, we are like, what are the things necessary to win? But we also are really forced to think about the ways that we lose. How do we get destroyed? How do we fail? How do, people not make it, right? And so that's kind of called inverting. You think about all the landmines, all the ways that you can lose, and then you figure out ways to avoid those issues. So, I've got some examples for you, right? So, I'm a lawyer, and my wife's a lawyer, and I've got buddies that are lawyers, and we love to watch like dumb criminals. Because let's assume that you're a drug mule, right? And you're hauling drugs in your car. Well, a simple plan would be, okay, I've got to take these drugs. I'm not trying to tell you how to be a drug mule, by the way. Don't worry. Let's say I want to get the drugs from this city to this city. Okay, well, I need a car and I need a driver and I need to load the drugs and unload the drugs. And that's kind of a simplistic version of how to like win being a drug dealer, I guess. But criminals are not very bright. They don't ever invert. Now, do not use this as a guide to like become a drug mule. Okay, like that's not the point. But it is kind of funny when we sit around as lawyers and we go, look, the only way that you get busted is, how do you get busted? Well, you get busted because you speed. So don't speed. That's inverting. Like, how do I get caught? I speed. I don't have a valid tag on my car. Okay, so put a valid tag on your car, right? Okay, I don't have a valid driver's license. Well, get a driver's license. Don't have a car that looks like, broken tail lights or whatever to get caught. I mean, basically you try to get rid of all the little things that could get you caught. And criminals don't do this. Criminals are stupid. I'm fine with that. I like dumb criminals. Let's get them busted. All right. But the point of the matter is we kind of make jokes about all the ways that like you can avoid getting busted if you inverted. If you actually thought about anything besides what your goal is, you think about the ways that you're going to lose. And all too often in life, people never want to address the ways they lose. They just want to be positive. And inverting is not about being positive or negative. It's just like, it's not even realistic or optimistic. I'm not really sure what it is, but it just is a view of like, hey man, these are the things that are going to stop me. So I need to either get rid of those things or build a workaround. And that to me is the definition of strategy, right? The definition of strategy is not figuring out how to win, but figuring out how you're going to lose and then win anyway. Okay. So I just got back from the Federal Advocacy Conference put on by COSBA, Your Voice, Your Impact, and Your Moment. We were in DC and hundreds of people were there, school board members, superintendents, state executive directors, all there to advocate on behalf of public schools. And there were basically like three different types of people that you're communicating your message about the awesomeness and the need to support public schools. So you've got the people that they don't know, and you need to educate them and give them information. Okay, we'll get them there. And then you have the people that are advocates and they get it, well-versed. And then you get the people that don't want public schools to succeed. They have their, they have, what are the monkeys that I see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. They just want to completely deny what the reality of how important public schools are. And so they turn a blind eye to it. And then I got to thinking about, man, we really need to address the main things that will harm public schools. And we really need to be targeting those in a way that we get rid of them. So, okay. So I went and I looked at some articles this morning, and I'm still a little tired because I just landed last night, and I turn around and leave again tomorrow morning for Houston, for another school conference. So it's an exciting time of year for me. But I wanted to get this out. It's just been bugging me all night. Okay. So I asked my chat GPT, who I have named Vicky. Okay. Vicky, like, how do public schools get destroyed? And Vicky doesn't want to talk about that. Vicky wants to be positive. Okay. So I started pulling up a lot of articles on like the biggest issues with public schools or how to really destroy like anything over time. And I've got 10 fundamental landmines that we have to invert, that we have to be aware of, and then we have to make sure don't occur. But the issue that I have is after I started building the list, I realized, man, a lot of these things have already occurred and we're going to have to kind of uncork that can. But let's go through it. And this is going to be a little, I don't know, man. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it just, I was so frustrated. I might turn this into a speech or a book or something. I don't know yet, but this really stresses me out. So, okay, the first thing that we do if we want to slowly erode and destroy public education is we make the financing of the schools very fragile, right? So we begin to erode the funding, start taking away their money. And since enrollment is the standard bearer of how much money you're going to get, I mean, like that's the main thing, start to do things that take that money away by driving enrollment away. Everything's about getting the kids to leave those to go to other choices, right? So do a lot of vouchers, really support charter schools, homeschools, out-migration, directly reduce states and local fundings that start to create a downward spiral and begin to, really figure out ways for that money to leave the district. I think that's been happening, right? And then you really want very rigid budget standards. Now, remember, the competition doesn't have these rigid budget standards. Student, voucher, you're good. That you get it. Okay, we're going to keep kind of getting into that. But then require the schools to have a ton of obligations, a ton of legacy cost issues, right? I mean, big buildings that they're not allowed to close, lots of infrastructure that's hard to uncork, right? At the same time that the budgets are going down, never make those infrastructure costs go down, right? And then an over-dependency. This is what Vicky told me. An over-dependency on state legislatures, really in states with active vouchers or education savings programs, right? So just kind of think about whether or not that's going on in your state, right? So that's the first thing that Vicky told me today when I kind of put in a bunch of stuff about inverting with her. And then the second thing was let's start to make sure that the public schools lose their relevance. Now, this is going on in college, right? I think we're seeing this in college, like people getting the degree for like underwater basket weaving and they're in debt $500,000. Like what? Like that's a mix match. That's a loss of relevance, right? So basically you're mismatching workforce demands with what you're teaching. Okay. Now, is this happening also in public schools? Well, sure it is. And it's not the fault of the superintendents, school board administrators. I'm telling you, it's not. I've heard them. They want to address the workforce demands of the future to the best of their ability. But if legislatures won't allow them the flexibility and the adaptation to change, well, that kind of makes them completely out of date, right? So public schools want to prepare for students of the economy like 2035, right? And they need AI, automation, soft skills, and if not, the parents are going to leave. Now, I'm at this conference, this COSBA conference, and I've been to other school conferences. They're talking about using AI. They want to use AI, right? Do they have the money? Do they have the resources to add this an entire new program? And then what are they going to be allowed to cut? Can they reduce standardized testing? Nope. Is graduation rate still a major goal? Yep. Even though just because a person graduates doesn't make them ready for 2035, it just means they got a ribbon, right? They got a little participation trophy. I don't think that's what we want for our children, right? I think we want them to be awesome, right? So why don't we also make testing like the most important thing instead of critical thinking, instead of problem solving? And I've talked about this before, but I've never once given my team here a standardized test. A matter of fact, I mean, sure, there's some industrial psychology tests like on entry to kind of get a feel for personality and fit, but that's not a graded test. But I don't give tests. I don't know any company that gives like these standardized tests. Instead, they want people that can solve problems, that don't melt when they get a little bit of pushback. If a person gets a C, it doesn't make them a loser. Maybe they want to fight a little harder. Maybe they want to learn a little bit more. But now, the kids don't all get A's. Their parents lose their minds and everybody freaks out. So let's just give them all A's and pass them. That is not the fault of the educators. It's the fault of the community. It's the fault of the legislators and the people we elect that have kind of built this system over 50, 55 years now. Right? So nobody even in office right now created this problem. So let's just, kind of think about this. But testing overload. So if schools remain tied to standardized tests as their main value, right, is the main thing that they're being judged on, then families are going to see them as irrelevant. Now, somebody out there is going, but Brian, we have to do standardized testing. Okay, then why don't we make private schools do standardized testing? Why don't we make schools that use, vouchers do standardized testing? Why don't we make everybody, if they're so important, why don't we make everybody do them? Maybe because that's not what's actually needed or wanted. So how can we have uncork that and allow the local school districts to make those decisions for their local community on what they want? Why do we have this broad rule that really pins in with layers of bureaucracy that you have to do it this way because that's the way we wanted to do for like what standardized testing was like? It's like 30, 35, 40 years old now, right? But now all the new programs don't require that. Now what we're saying is we want quick schools that can adapt and adjust to meet the needs of the community. But not if you're a public school. We want to allow the public school. Why would we allow the public school? Interesting thought, right? Okay. So, and this really gets into that public schools have a very inflexible model. And if I wanted to really destroy a business, let's say destroy a company, I'm going to create an inflexible model. There's a rule in businesses, and oh my God, it drives me crazy. And I think sometimes people say it around here just to mess with me. And the phrase is, well, that's the way we've always done it. If you hear that phrase in your school district, you better fix that person and the team and everybody super quickly, because then you're a dinosaur. You're dead. You're gone. You're extinct. You're extinct. You're over with. And in business, if you're not constantly changing, if you're not constantly being flexible and modernizing, you're going to be left behind and you're done. And so, you ever heard of Blockbuster? They were pretty flexible in their model. Now, if you haven't heard of Blockbuster, they rented what is called a VCR tapes. Now, for you youngins, you don't know what a VCR tape is. It's a little hard to probably explain, but it was this I'm being kind of funny right here, but a lot of them don't really know. Like they would send you, not send you, this is even before then. You would have to go to a store like on a Friday or Thursday night and you'd look at, 50, 100, they look like books, but inside it was a tape and you had a VCR and you stuck it in a machine and you had to hit play and maybe it worked. If the person didn't rewind it, you had to rewind it first. That was always a pain in the butt. And then you'd play and you'd watch your movie and then you'd go return it. If you didn't, you would get charged like your liver and your kidney and your firstborn would have to be turned over to Blockbuster, right? Like that was their model. And so they didn't invert. They didn't change. They were very inflexible. And Netflix came along and, ate their lunch because, first of all, they did mail order. Netflix would send you the videos. That was all new. And then they said, we can stream these things. And people are like in a river? No, online, this internet thing's not going away. Anyway, I know I digress a little bit, but that's the whole problem. You can see these companies and businesses go fall apart and go under. I was going to use the whole go the way of the dodo bird, but they're extinct, but that phrase is kind of passe at this point, I think. So, but the companies would just dissolve, and that's what's going to happen to public schools, but they want to be flexible. They want to adjust, but their leaders won't allow them. Now, hold on. It's not the school leaders I'm talking about. It's not the superintendents I'm talking about. They want a flexible model. It's the people that fund them. It's the funding mechanisms that are inflexible, not the leaders. So if I'm going to try to get rid of public schools, I'm going to give them an inflexible model that is completely tied to their funding. Okay, I think we've got that already. All right. Number 3, I am going to make schools very political. I'm going to weaponize it. So it is funny. I'm a big environmentalist. I'm a conservative dude. I don't like paying taxes, and I think the government should have a limited role in local government, which means I think the local public schools should have all the authority, not somebody from another place. But that's an old school conservative, like from 75 years ago or something. I don't even know when it is. It's not around much anymore. But when I say I'm an environmentalist, what I mean is like environmentalist used to be a conservative thing, like in the 1940s and stuff. And then it became weaponized. And then you were either on this side of the fence or that side of the fence. And I'm like, wait a minute, can't we all just be environmentalists? Can't we all just care about like clean air and clean water? And why does that have to be political? Well, it has to be political so some group divides us so they can get your vote. So let's make supporting public schools political. Let's make it either a Republican or a Democrat thing. I mean, it should be. I mean, kids shouldn't be political at all. Kids should just get like an education, but let's make it political, right? And so schools really risk being defined by bans and mandates and ideology battles rather than student success. Right. And, it is interesting. I hear about all these different things going on in different schools that different political groups want to yell and scream about. And then you really get into the public schools and you talk to the teachers and the principals, and it's really not happening. It's just on the news. It's just on the news that, I don't want to turn this podcast right now into like a divisive issue on whatever those claims are. But it's like, oh man, it's so dangerous because like I was in DC and my mother's like, be careful. The National Guards. I saw 2 National Guard people. I wasn't even really paying attention to what was going on, but there weren't it wasn't, crime on the streets and guards on the streets. I don't know where you fall on that particular issue. I'm agnostic. I haven't been paying attention to it. I've been worried about other things. I guess I'm a little bit more stoic than I thought. But anyway, so let's blow up. Let's blow up and make schools political. You're either for us or against us, and that means you have to be into a certain political party. No. Everybody should be supporting free public education because it's the foundation of our society. So let's make it real political, right? So I think that's kind of happened too, right? Okay. Then let's create competition. This is number 4. Let's create competition without making the rules equal. Without creating a level playing field. Like that's the book I was speaking about, or I'm speaking about on Friday. My latest book. You can find it on Amazon if you want. Is let's have competition without the same rules. So you can get government money now, taxpayer money. So let's don't confuse this with like, if I want to pay for my kid to go to school, I'll teach them whatever I want. If I want them to be homeschooled, I'll take care of it. I'll handle it myself, stay out of my business. Hey, man, that's cool, but you can't use my money to do it. Like, I support you as being an American, and like doing it your way, right? But if you're going to use taxpayer dollars, you're going to use my money and your money to go and do it, we need some parameters, and it should all be fair. It should all be equal, whatever school you go to. And so competitors just face fewer regulations and can select students very indirectly. And they don't carry the same mandates for transportation, Americans with Disabilities Act, a lot of the really awesome laws that came out in the 60s to prevent discrimination. They don't have to follow all those. And they can, kind of pick and choose who they take. They don't have to take all the students, but they can take all the money. Huh. I just kind of thought about that. They don't have to take all the students, but they sure can take all the money. Well, I've talked about this endlessly, and I've got some other podcasts on this, so I'm not going to dig into this one for hours on this, but the rules are not equal. Let's just make them equal. And I think that if public schools have the same exact rules as competition, they'll thrive, right? But this also gets into marketing, right? You know what I'm in the business of doing, man. I recruit students back to public schools, and we're not a marketing company, but we're a campaign company. I mean, we're going to go out there, talk to the parents, tell the parents what makes the school awesome, and then let the parents choose. I mean, the competition could do that. So that seems fair. And then legislators and parents lose their minds. Why you cannot use taxpayer dollars to recruit students and to tell people how awesome the public school? But the competition does that. There are some competitor schools, non-traditional public schools, to use as much as 30%. 30% of their overall budget to market and sell to parents, which sounds terrible to me. That sounds like a real misuse of funds, right? You should be using the great bulk of your money to educate the children, right? But they're doing it. So why can't public schools use 3, 4, 5% to let parents know about their choice and what makes it right? But we're not allowed to do that. We don't want to do that. Now, why? Why aren't we allowed to do that? Because people out there slowly want to erode and get rid of public education. That's their jam, I guess, and we need to be aware of it. All right. Let's talk about the human capital. Let's talk about people. Well, a great way to destroy public schools is just to destroy the morale of teachers, right? Just beat them up, burnout, low pay, a lack of respect is going to fuel vacancies and destabilize schools. And I mean, who wants to have a child? Some little Brian Stevens punk. I was a punk. And, get lippy. And then you can't discipline him. You can't do anything about him. You get yelled and screamed at. And some people say, well, that's the parents. Yeah, it's the parents. It is the parents. The teachers would like to have some discipline in their classroom. I mean, hopefully it's appropriate discipline. But no, it's the parents. And why can't the schools discipline the students? It's not the schools, it's the parents. And who the parents vote for? Legislatures that tell the public schools not to discipline the kids. I mean, right? Or something happens and the child should have been disciplined and the parent screams and yells on the media and the media eats it up and then beats up the teachers, beats up the schools. And it happens all the time. I'm not saying that there's not ever cases of teachers going too far. Absolutely. But there's always extraneous examples that you can find, it's just like in the military, every soldier's bad. Because one committed a war crime? No. Every police officer's bad? Every single one? Because some cops are bad? All teachers are bad? All public schools are bad? I mean, really? This is, do you know any teachers? Because every single teacher that I've actually met and know is pretty awesome. Now, I met one teacher that I did not like very much. I did not think their heart was in the right place. I'm not going to say their name. And it happens, right? But by and large, most of them want to do the right thing. They're not in it for the money. They're not in it to, maybe they are in it to save the world, like one child at a time. I kind of believe that, but it's fulfilling to them. And I like to see the kids get better and grow up and become awesome adults and, come back and see them sometime. That's the majority of teachers. But let's burn them out, man. Let's wear them out. Let's just put more and more paperwork on them. I mean, this is the same kind of thing like doctors. I don't know why anybody goes to medical school anymore. I don't know if they get to be doctors anymore. I think they end up spending their time filling out paperwork and trying to fight with the insurance companies. Same thing with the teachers. The teachers want to teach, but instead they're filling out paperwork and fighting with the legislators that are adding more and more layers to what they have to do instead of just, teaching what the community wants them to teach them. Why is that okay, right? All right, so starting to create toxic work cultures, divide, conflict between parents and politics and teachers and have them fighting. I think we're seeing a lot of that. So this inversion it's occurring. And it would be great if we started to uncork this. Today, I'm not going to get into how to uncork this. I'm trying to stay on point right now, even though I want to problem solve with you. I really do. Okay, and then let's start to disconnect the community. It's number 6. Community disconnect. I want to erode public will. So the public no longer sees schools as their schools, neighborhood schools. The support for funding collapses. And then what you have is very vulnerable populations, special needs, low income. They're going to be abandoned. They're going to be abandoned. We've seen it before, right? And families will defect to alternatives that, I'm going to put it in quotes, appear more responsive because they have a more flexible plan. They have the ability to adjust their learning, or at least tell you they're adjusting their learning. But remember, they may not have standardized testing. You may not know how good little Brian's doing, but they're going to market and sell you and give you the propaganda that makes you feel good. I had a person I was meeting with the other day that they said, but why would people try to destroy public schools? I mean, what's their interest? Why Why get in the business of, competition and having kids go other ways if it's not to try to improve education? I said, oh, you said it, you just missed it. The business. It's a business now. It's a business for private schools. It's a business for parochial schools. It's a business for charter schools. It's a business for home schools. It's a business for virtual schools. And now it's got to become a business for public schools. That way it's all equal. Businesses, competition. You can have Coke, you can have Pepsi, you can go to McDonald's, you can go to Wendy's, whatever. Competition should be good if it's got the same equal parameters. But people are making a lot of money on this. I mean, people are making a lot of money. I mean, just the companies that are holding the voucher money. All right, you'll have to look into this. Maybe I'll do another one on this later on. But like companies that are holding the voucher money, like the $500 million in X state. There's a state that has this. I'm going to have to dig into this before I get into this, but I was talking this past week about it. And the company holding that $500 million is making a profit on that. Like they're making some points holding the interest on that. And that's how they make their money. That's a lot of money. That's a lot. Give me 1% off of $500 million a year. And, that's a lot of cash, and the charter schools are making money. I mean, I haven't told this story a ton of times, but before I found Jesus, I got asked to be on a charter school board. This is maybe 15, 16 years ago. And I thought that's cool. Competition, more flexible model. I really didn't understand everything that I understand now about it. And it was atrocious, the amount of money they were spending on marketing. They also had a nonprofit. They had an affiliated nonprofit. Now, where did the money go to fund the nonprofit? Well, the money came from the student enrollment fees, not like donations, like from parents. And they were buying artwork and stuff. I mean, it was atrocious. I left the board very soon after that because I didn't want to go to jail, and that seemed like something very nefarious to me. So what we're going to do is I get back to continuing to destroy community involvement. But when you make the options seem like the grass is really greener on the other side of the fence, it's awesome. It's super cool. Let's go over there, and then people are leaving public schools, and public schools need to have a right to advocate for themselves. But the way to destroy this community goodwill is, violence, bullying, failure to serve all the students, and then just let the news and the media and community groups just complain as if all public schools are one-celled organisms. Now, I get it. There are some public schools that aren't doing very well. There are some public schools that probably that school should be consolidated or shut down. Those resources should be used elsewhere. There's 14,000 districts. I don't know how many actual schools there are in the nation, but there are 14,000 school districts. So there've got to be tens of thousands of actual schools. I'm sure that some of them aren't doing well and need to be like reworked, dumped, adjusted, or something like in a major way, right? But there are also a lot of ones that are doing awesome, that are doing incredible. It's funny we don't talk about that, right? We just want to talk about that one that's doing poorly, and then a national media story comes up on all public schools are terrible because one school at some county in the middle of wherever messed up. Well, how come we don't do that for private schools? I mean, there's thousands of private schools in the nation. How come we don't ever run a story about how horrible all private schools are? I've never heard that story. I've never had one story that says all private schools are horrible, and they're not all horrible. Some of them are awesome, but I bet, and I know that some of them aren't. A matter of fact, I'll tell you a story now. My daughter went to when she was young, and before we found the gospel of the good word, right? We put her in. It was cool. We had a little bit of money, and we thought that's what you do. You put your kids in private school, and the racism and the discrimination. And I'm telling you, and the oh my God, the pictures that my daughter got sent when she finally got a cell phone from boys, and the drugs were rampant. I don't know if they're any more worse than they were other places, but it was not great. And we moved her to public school, and I'm sure she got old enough not to tell us the issues. I don't know if they were occurred or not, but she went to public school for years and years, graduated from public school, and she's at Virginia Tech now, man. I mean, like, I think it was pretty good public school. My wife went to public school. She's a HIPAA lawyer, like a health and privacy lawyer in healthcare. I think that's a pretty important job. That seems pretty cool. I think that's a winning case. Why don't we talk about those examples? Instead, we're just going to find the worst case example for public schools and beat it up. And then we're going to talk about the best example from a voucher or private school, and we're going to talk about how awesome they are. I mean, I can always find examples are good or bad in either, but that's not how it's done right now, because we're trying, not we, people are working to erode support for public schools. And this is how you do it. You find bad examples and you just beat the tar out of it. Okay, I'm going on a rant. Let me move on, because I want you to keep thinking about this inversion and the things that we're up against. Now, there's light. There's light at the end of the tunnel, all right? And then structural stagnation is this seventh bar I've got. That's a really big word, right? And let's don't call it structural stagnation. Let's call it bureaucratic red tape, all right? I've kind of hit on this already a little bit more, but we want a flexible model. Like, that's the ideal. Like, so if you're going to put a checklist of what are the awesome things you need to win, flexible model. Well, let's make it inflexible. And let's call so much bureaucratic red tape and make it so slow moving with a gazillion reports and a gazillion data points that by the time you're done with it, society's moved on to something else and you got to do another report. Study upon study upon study with no implementation, right? Let's just keep thinking about how to win, and let's keep getting the consultants to come in and tell you how to win, and let's get, legislative blue ribbon panels, but then never actually implement those changes, right? And parents and teachers are going to turn to something that's more agile, that fits what the community wants then, not what the community wanted 5 years ago that you're finally ready to implement, right? But that's the lack of a flexible model. And then let's have massive technology gaps. Right? Let's fall behind on digital learning and innovative teaching solutions that kind of craft to individual solutions for the student, which we have the ability to do right now. We have the ability to do it, but man, boy, I was in the Army. I get red tape, man. You got to fill out everything in triplicate, and by the time you get done with the reports, you're already ready to ship back from overseas or something. I mean, it's crazy, right? But then in this bureaucratic red tape nonsense, if you want to hurt public schools, let's measure what doesn't matter. Let's measure things like, graduation rates, right? Like, I get it when that came up. That sounds good in theory, but then all of a sudden we pass people to the next grade over and over and over when they're not ready because we want high graduation rates. I mean, when I was an adjunct professor, I was told I needed to not give grades below a C. And I was like, but what if they don't know more than a C? I mean, like, that's why I'm here, right? I'm here to make them better, not make them pass. And the university's like, this was a university. We're like, but we need high graduation rates. And I go, but I thought we wanted to make good people. But the level of control and bureaucracy was pressing on my boss and pressing on their boss and to say, look, just pass the people so I don't get yelled at. Let's measure something that doesn't matter. Instead of measuring what is the 10-year outcome for a student after they graduate, wouldn't that be interesting? What are they like a year after they graduate? Do they have a job? Are they in school? Are they in trade school? Are they in the military? Are they doing well? Why don't we measure them a year after instead of the day that they graduate? Wouldn't that be an interesting thing? I don't even know if that's right or not, but at least it should be what matters, not graduation rates, but are they successful, right, in life? And this is where it gets into, I've done a lot of coaching for teachers on a little student, little Brian here, is not ready to move up to fourth grade, let's say, right? So I'm in third grade. I'm not ready. I don't have the skills necessary. And the parents lose their minds. Why? Because the parents have been indoctrinated with moving up a grade is a sign of success. Graduation is a sign of success. Getting A's is a sign of success. And I think that if you are more than 25 years old plus, you know that those skill sets are not what drives you to success in life, right? Learning how to problem solve, learning how to deal with adversity, learning how to, dig in, realize that you weren't good enough yesterday, but now you can learn the skills and be awesome tomorrow. That's what makes a great adult. And we should have those talks with the parents of like, hey, little Brian is going to be a great adult. That's our job right now. It's not just passing him to fourth grade right now. He'll get there next year, but he needs one more year and he'll feel more confident, he'll feel more successful. We'll get in those skills necessary, but the parents lose their minds because they've been taught that means they're a failure if their child doesn't, move up one grade. And no. Your job is to be an awesome, a parent at adulting, not like just passing the grade. But this is what we've taught families for 50 years. I don't even know if it's the parents' fault that they believe this. But the teachers have got to have these hard conversations with parents, and they've got to be open and honest, and maybe they'll get through to some of them. So let's just call so much red tape and tracking things that don't matter, but will make it seem really, really important to all of it. I've got 3 more of these top 10, but I think we get it, right? Like, we're going to use the media as a weapon. We're going to demoralize our staff and our teachers, and we're going to erode community support. Like, that's what I would do if I really wanted to harm public schools. And now I start to look at everything that's going on, and that's what's happening. So that's what we've got to uncork. But I think we have to be real about what's happening. I think that, I don't know. I'm a little frustrated, I guess, right now. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. I appreciate you listening to all this, and I want to be there for you, and I would love to get some comments and some emails about what direction I have, because sometimes I get a little flat-footed too, and lose my morale. I did get excited from the Cosmo Conference. There were some really cool people that were, trying to overcome some of these obstacles. So let's everybody get on the same team with them. All right. Hey, thanks everybody.